today. You're kind of a living, breathing embodiment of what is possible. And I'm curious. Before you believed in you. I learned that there's quite a number of people that did believe in you, that had hope for you, your mother and your grandmother. And I'm curious, what led to the decision to go to law school?
Oh man. Oh man. My mother and my grandmother had a profound influence on my life. I don't know if you saw the documentary that Netflix had on me, Civil, but it talked a lot about my grandmother. God bless that woman. She was the wisest person I ever met on the face of this earth, even though she only had an eighth grade education. Because when you got to a certain age in North Carolina, you quit going to school and you went to crop tobacco because that was your reality. But my grandmother understood the importance of education. She, man, she took out a newspaper subscription, even though she could barely read. And I never forget, I was like going to the second grade. So I'm still learning to read myself. And every day after I would finish my homework, my grandmother and I would try to read articles in the newspaper, and we'd try to sound out the words and figure out the context of the articles about people like Mother Teresa and President Jimmy Carter and Anwar died in the Peace Accord. And what was amazing about that is what my grandmother really was doing was showing me that there was a bigger world out there for me than just Lumberton, North Carolina. And so, the decision to become a lawyer, my mother, she would always tell me, because she was always working, seemed like, and maybe that's where I get my work ethic from. My mother worked 2 jobs for as long as I can remember, man. And so she would always tell me, life isn't fair, baby. She said, life is hard. You make it fair by what you bring to the table. And if you don't bring that to the table, don't expect anybody to let you sit down at the table. And so she told me, education is something to bring to the table, because once you have it up here, nobody can take it away from you. And she said, and when you get to the table, you make sure you try to leave room to help others get to the table. And when I graduated from college at Florida State University, one of the first things I said to my mama was, I'm bringing something to the table. And so it's those women who always believed I think like our ancestors in the cotton fields, they, they just saw a better world for their children, and they were willing to sacrifice any and everything for it. And so when I made the decision to become a lawyer, it was partly watching them. I went to, Brown versus Board of Education with all deliberate speed, finally got to Lumberton, North Carolina in the late 70s. And so they bused us little black children from South Lumberton, literally across the tracks, to North Lumberton, to the affluent white communities, and where they had a new school, new technology, new facilities, new books, new everything. And so I remember coming back home one day from school, crossed the tracks, and I just observed our neighborhood. You had all the dilapidated buildings. You had the broken down raggedy cars on the side of the street. You had my old elementary school that was, even though we have pride in it, it was run down as well. And I just remember thinking, I wonder why people on our side of town have it so challenging And people on the other side of town seem to have it so, accommodating and affluent and better. And I remember my mother saying, well, the reason we got to go to the new school with the new books and the new facilities and everything was because of Brown versus the Board of Education and an attorney named Thurgood Marshall. And I decided right then at 9 years old, when I grow up, I'm going to become an attorney like Thurgood Marshall and fight to make a better situation for people who live in my community, for people who look like me, to have equal opportunity, a better opportunity at the American dream. And from that day to this one, that's what I endeavor to do every day I wake up, every day. I never doubt what my mission is when I wake up.